Okay. And I see Natalie. Can you hear us okay, Natalie? All right, I'm going to log into Zoom so I can see you better, but it'll be just me. I'm trying to log into Zoom. There we go. Okay, as I wait for the meeting host to let me in. All right, hi guys. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Kevin had, we'll go through the agenda. Attendance at the start of the meeting is 6 in chambers, 1 via Zoom. Did we get anyone registered to speak? Okay, I did push it out today, but nobody. Okay. Then we're going through general questions. We're not doing the utility postponed motions today. Is that correct? Right. So before we approve the agenda, let's take that off. And then any new stuff. And then we will have a chance to go in camera, which I'm actually going to move the in-camera session ahead of the BIRs and postponed motion. So let's switch 5 and 6 in case there's something coming out of the in-camera session that needs a motion. And then, okay, so the agenda as amended, guys. So we're taking away number 4 and we're flipping 5 and 6. Is that all good? All right. Councillor Mackay, make a motion.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's a motion there. I haven't, no, there is
You
no.
don't need, oh no, right, we're committee of the whole. Yeah, thank you. All right, when we get to general questions, Mr. Scobel, I'm going to go to you first. You sent me a text, I think yesterday, wanting to do the recreation and public works first. Is that what you wanted? Just in case later this afternoon they are called elsewhere?
Yeah, I think we have recreation and parks and then arts and culture. And then after that, I don't think it matters much.
And then it's a free for all?
Yeah, maybe public works and transit third. But we've got the in-camera portion too.
Yeah, the in-camera is mostly the public work stuff, so.
Yeah. So I think if you just, if we focus on rec and parks and arts and culture,
Okay.
we should be good.
Start with rec and parks. Any questions on rec and parks or arts and culture? And then we can, if there's none, then Kevin can let his staff go in those areas. And then we can focus on other stuff. So let's start. Go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
I'll be quick, I hope. I guess it depends on the response. So maybe, I'm not sure if anybody's online or if it just addressed it to Carrie, but in relation to the Alpine Park pickleball courts in the sound study, and then subsequent postponed motion put forward by Councillor Hughes, didn't we have a kind of a third option presented earlier where administration or rec came back and said we could actually do a modified sound barrier for, I think it was 38,000 or in that range. Is my memory failing? It was presented at committee or council, but I can recall that.
So thank you for the question, Councillor Mackay, and to rest of council is that there was we did discuss a third modified option of a reduced probably about half sound attenuation around the courts. That cost was it was approximately $60,000, but we did not have we weren't it wasn't guaranteed that would work. It was something you could try, you could do it as a phase. So if it did work, yes, but it could come back because you would have to do a second phase. But I'll let Diane discuss this more in detail as she may have more information than I do. Diane,
You're muted. Oh,
you're muted, Diane.
here we go. You're good now. Oh, now you're muted. Go.
Okay, thank you. So Carrie's response was accurate. We did have a third option, which was only doing half of, our vision was 2 full sides of the pickleball courts. This option was to do half of each of the 2 sides. And it was at a 50 to 70% of the original cost. We hadn't done a lot of analysis on this. Our analysis was based on doing 2 full sides of the pickleball courts, but this was an option that was put forward.
So was there research, was there some research through that or some basis of a study, or was it just kind of, you kind of were just trying to alleviate some of the residents' concern in the area?
It was based on a request from council to look at another option that might be less expensive than the full option. So again, we haven't, it would probably be based on the work that we've done to date. The best option that we feel would have the biggest impact on the noise attenuation would be the 2 full sides. This partial option, and to Mr. Hilt's comment there is that we're not sure if partially is going to actually provide significant attenuation of the noise. But it is something that we might have to add on to if we found that it didn't.
So the intent of the $10,000 budget item for the sound study, would that give you what you think you would need, or would it just be sunk costs?
The sound study, again, it would be able to provide us some more detail in terms of the actual impact of putting up the acoustic panels and the impact that it would have on noise on the court and to the residents. So the noise study would provide additional information, and we could give them both options that they could look at.
So would it also then come back with the type of sound attenuation material or the equipment, or would it just be just that, yeah, this is the sound and it is above certain levels and that we should have sound attenuation? Or would it actually come back with specifics, including costs, or is that added on costs afterwards?
The proposal that we received on the study, the noise study, was to actually take the product that we were proposing to install the acoustic panels and do the noise study based on that product, and then to provide us the impact that that would have on reducing the sound.
So I'm sorry, so we would actually, so we wouldn't, it would just measure the sound as it on the courts existing right now, or would we actually put some sort of material to break up the sound and then measure the impacts? I just kind of got it backwards there.
So they would test the sound on the court without any attenuation. And then they would actually take the product that we were proposing, the acoustic panel, and then they would provide a report based on that particular product, what impact it would have to reduce the sound.
So they would actually install the product that we have now on the 2 sides?
No, they wouldn't install it. They would do it based on the technical data that they have, the research that they would do based on the sound and the product specifications.
So, okay, so they wouldn't actually physically install it. It would just be
Correct.
based on that. Okay, thank you. That I wanted clarification on that, and I apologize if I was a little slow on the uptake on that. While I have you, I put in a postponed motion on the Oakmont Trail Phase 2 development. And the response that I got back on the impacts would be that other projects could be delayed or would be delayed. And there was one example. Would there be other more pressing examples, or how would, or can you kind of expand on that?
Yes, so we did, Oakmont Trail was planned for 2022. If we bring it forward into 2021, we actually have a very full year of parks construction and parks planning planned for that year. We would have to reprioritize our projects, and one of the ones we presented in the postponed motion was the parks bylaw. So we may need to postpone the timing of that, or we may need to find some ways to resource some of the projects so that we could bring the Oakmont Trail forward into 21.
So that first phase is actually over 2021, 2022, right? Could it not be looked at to be loaded a little bit differently in relation to what parts get looked after in 2021 and what parts get moved over into 2022? Wouldn't that be stretched out a little bit?
Maybe what I'll do is I'll ask Amanda Wild, she's our senior project manager for Parks Development, to respond. She's the one that would be managing all of our parks development projects for next year.
Well, there we go. Through the chair, yeah, we certainly could look at phasing of the project. The first phase of the project is environmental assessments and land suitability. So it's certainly possible to stretch it over the 2 years. Our biggest concern is, given the area that it's in the river valley, we're constrained in terms of land as well as soil type, and then just the neighborhood that it's in. We know that we need to do a lot of public engagement and a lot of investigation, but it absolutely could stretch over 2 years. We're just a little bit limited for field investigation seasons and timing of charters and things to confirm capital construction costs. So we just have to manage that. But yes, it could certainly go over 2 years.
Yeah, and I guess because I mean, there has been probably some, since the last study, I'm aware of one study that was in 2011. And I would imagine that there's been some changes since that study in relation to what's been like some of the infill that's been put in there and the like. So it would have to be substantial, wouldn't that, correct or not correct?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, it is a fairly substantial piece of work. The preliminary investigations that were done previously were very topical and high level. So we need to do quite a bit more detail as well with our rising water levels. That's another concern that we have that may require some alternate construction solutions like boardwalks and things like that, which do heavily impact the construction cost that we need to look at really carefully.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to follow up on the questions around the pickleball study, sound study. So sound is an issue in our community, and I don't doubt that per second. Do we have a plan to sort of set standards that will guide us going into the future? So we, and where I'm going with this is if we do a sound study around that, is it going to give us some thresholds that we don't want to exceed? So, and where I'm going with this is that sound is not just pickleball. I'm thinking outdoor rinks where they're playing shinny at 10 o'clock at night and slapping hard pucks up against the boards. I'm not sure which is more noisy. So I'm just wondering if out of this sound study, we would get a standard whereby we would either put in sound attenuation or we would not. What's your perspective on that?
Councilor Broadhead, the sound study for the Alpine pickleball courts would be specific to those courts, and it would be specific to the sound that was coming off the courts specifically for pickleball. And it would be based on the acoustical panels and the impact that reduction in sound would have with the acoustic panels in place. It would not provide, I don't think, any kind of measurement for sound that could be used across the city. However, we do have the noise bylaw, which does have some parameters within it.
Well, presumably the pickleball doesn't abuse the sound bylaw.
Correct.
All right, so it's almost a given that if you put up, do a study of sound before and the sound after, you're going to get a reduction. How are you going to define whether that's enough of a reduction to make the cost worthwhile?
Once we got the study back, we would look at what the impacts would be. If it was significant and it did reduce the sound significantly, then that's when we could go forward potentially to look at the acoustic panels to mitigate the sound. If it was, less than 50%, again, that would be, I guess, a consideration as to whether or not it would be worth it to move forward with the acoustic panels.
So if we get some complaints from people living next to outdoor rinks, what's our response going to be?
Good question, Councillor Broadhead. I know that, we do, you're right. We do have sound issues in the community, throughout the community. We have not had currently a lot of complaints within Recreation and Parks for outdoor rinks. We do have time limits on some of our outdoor recreation amenities, such as our lights go off on our outdoor rinks at 10 o'clock. We do have park bylaw where our parks need to be vacated from our parks by 11 o'clock. So I think we do have some measures in place to try and mitigate noise.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Any more questions for Diane, maybe specifically? Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Diane. I'm just going to be the voice of just one of six in the background today. So I'm just for clarification, for the sound study, or just addressing the pickleball noise, when I think about the locations of, like, for example, the other outdoor rinks, they don't seem to be directly beside residential. They seem to be like across the street, or there seems to be a buffer. And I'm trying to think of one that would be right next to a house. Alpine would be really close to it. Everything's over in Alpine. Okay, but what you have said is basically from your experience is that the noise complaints, you have not been experiencing ongoing noise complaints from the other outdoor facilities. Would that be fair to say?
That would be correct and fair to say, yes.
Okay, so the pickleball courts is an extraordinary situation in that we have been hearing concerns now ongoing for a longer period of time. And the pickleball courts, they were expanded upon. So when the footprint increased, did it get, I'm thinking, when I just think of the layout, that it also moved closer to residential when we moved it from being 2 courts to 12.
The actual footprint of the courts didn't change. The fencing didn't change. It's in the same location. It went from tennis courts to 12 pickleball courts. So it intensified the use. And we know with pickleball being a growing sport, it has increased utilization on those courts. So that has increased, use has increased the ongoing sound and also the duration and length of time that people are spending there. Has increased with the pickleball courts. Again, just the number of courts that we have, the interest in pickleball in the community, not only from the pickleball club, which has grown to over 600 members, but also we have a lot of residents that also enjoy the sport. So it has seen a lot of use, those courts.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. That was it. Okay, thanks.
I have a question, and it might be for Ray, but I'm going to keep you on the line, Diane, because it's about his motion on the Meadowview construction rescope. Councillor Watkins, when you first made it, did you indicate there would be some savings? I just want to make sure that staff have your intention, because in the backgrounder it says there's no savings.
No, the idea wasn't savings. The idea was just to spread the cash
Just to spread the
equally
cash.
over 4 years, as opposed to having it 2 million this year and then, or 2 million in 21 and
Okay.
2 million in 23.
All right,
Because if we had $1 million less, it's supposed to be 1% less tax. So why would we spend 2 million and then have a year off and spend 2 million
Okay.
and have a year off?
so I guess this is maybe a question for, maybe not you, Diane, but for the other Diane, Morty. This is being funded out of capital, is that correct?
That's correct. So changing the cash flow on that project actually doesn't impact municipal taxes at all, because it's all within the capital funding envelope.
So while I've got you there, we got an email from Carrie, I think it was, oh, I'm going to have to find it now. It had something to do about reserves. If I remember correct, we had, oh, here it is. So if we kept the capital plan, both RMR and growth, the exact same, we didn't make any adjustments this year, we'll have, is this correct that we'll have $4.4 million available for next year?
Oh, on that, I'd have to go back. I know which, that was the spreadsheet that we had kind of sent out around the capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about what the number was, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Okay,
We tried to look at it over about a 4 or 5 year period.
Right, and so I think everybody needs to maybe have a good look at this, because we do have a few additions proposed to the capital plan, and they sum around 609,000. So that would just take our available funding for the next year down. Is that how it would work?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, because I don't think any of those motions identify funding source. So I would assume if there's no funding source and it's capital, it comes out of capital reserve, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then in 2022, you're predicting that we don't have enough money. So if we take 600,000 out this year, we're even more in a hole next year.
So with what we've got proposed originally over the 5 years, we definitely have enough funding. But I also wanted to caution that's based on also the estimates of the local government fiscal framework, which is replacing MSI. And we don't know whether those amounts that they had given us as estimates about a year and a half ago are going to come to fruition. So if those capital grants go down by much, that's going to impact us quite a bit as well.
And that could impact us in 21, would it not?
Yeah, well, no, it'll impact us more in 22.
Okay,
Yeah, 'cause I think
sorry.
it's the end of 21 that MSI ends.
So MSI ends in 21 and LGFF starts in 22. And so you're basing your numbers on LGFF in 22, but I'm going to not go out on very far of a limb here to say that the 21 allocation of MSI is probably going to go down as well.
I mean, I guess anything is possible. I'm not really anticipating that. I think our 21 MSI is probably okay, but it's the 22 and forward that I'm a little bit more concerned about, because that local government fiscal framework as well has not even been put into policy in the government yet. Like, it hasn't been written into legislation, so.
And it's hard to predict. Mr. Scoble, were you on the town hall meeting with Allard, Kenny, and Hinshaw last Wednesday?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so Allard said that there was going to be a reduction in MSI.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes, there's a reduction. She hasn't said what. So it's too hard to budget for in December. How do we adjust to that reduction in 21 MSI if that happens come March?
Yeah, so we would definitely just have to take a look at what the reduction is and how that potentially impacts us over the next several years, to decide whether we potentially had to pull back approval on projects that we've already approved. I mean, that's an option, if we had to, and we could do that sort of before the final May, when we typically would do our tax rate bylaw. Even though this doesn't really impact the tax rate per se, we could take a look at it and see what was necessary.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. So Councillor Watkins, if your intention on that motion was to take $1 million off of taxes, and that's not what's
I'll just
happening.
withdraw it.
You're going to withdraw it? Okay. Have you read the backgrounder?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Did you get that? Okay, it was good try. Yeah, I got a couple more questions here. Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had
No,
a couple more.
I got lots. Go
I
ahead.
just want to question while I have Diane still here, and thanks for staying on. One of the items that we identified in the service level reduction business cases was the temporary ongoing closure of Grosvenor Pool in the 2021. If that moved ahead, is there a tipping point or a line that, let's say something changes in we could open it? Is there, like, where's the drop dead date to say we could open it or we have to keep it closed? Do you have that? Like, would it be a specific time? Is it a possible, with not only with the facility upkeep, I guess, but with staffing?
So we would need budget approval to move forward with opening the pool in 21. And we also need to prepare the facility and staffing. So we'd need to know by early 21 whether or not we were going to open Grosvenor Pool next year.
Okay, so you
or
could.
whether we were going to close it.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I was going to say no decision has been made yet on that one. So. Okay. I was just wondering if there was like a date, like by, you're not going to obviously do it May, but was there another date that we could have to make sure that we did?
Grosvenor Pool opens May long weekend historically. And so we would need to know by February, I would say, by the time we are able to get the facility ready and recall staff. And also we utilize our existing aquatic staff to also staff our outdoor facilities. So we'd want to be able to plan for that. So I would say early February.
Thank you.
And so Diane, there's $159,200 in the budget right now to open the pool. So if come April, we're not allowed to, then we can use that towards next year's impending deficit. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you. My question really is about the tourism support. So I don't know if we want to address that right now. We're good to go?
Mr. McRitchie's there.
Oh, good. Mayor Herron has a postponed motion to reduce by $57,600, and by the looks of her comment, it's around the visitor center. So I'm wondering if after our conversation with the chamber the other night, they kind of explained to us that they actually pay a lease amount to run the visitor center. So can you first of all explain how that operation works and where the 57,600 would be the biggest impact?
Yeah. So through you, the way that our arrangement with the Chamber of Commerce works for our visitor services center is, well, they pay approximately, exactly $39,999.99 on an annual basis to rent the visitor services center there on the south side of the city. We essentially pay them back $30,000 a year to run the visitor operations center. So what essentially happens there is we provide them with the literature, our see and do guide, restaurants to visit, things of that nature. And they essentially operate the drop-in center for residents visitors who are coming into our community, who'd like to go in and learn more about exactly what to see and do in the area, whether it's Big Lake or the Enjoy Center or the restaurants and hotels we have in town. So the difference is about $10,000 in what they pay us for rent versus what we pay them for the visitor center. I think that addresses the first part of your question. The second part, was about the reduction in our service level. Is that what you're asking about? Sorry.
Well, I guess that question is maybe looking at the mayor for what the intention is, because it sounds like we're getting a deal on the visitor center if they're paying us back. So where do you see that reduction happening, Mayor? Where do you see the reduction of it happening? Because we're actually getting more funding from the chamber than they're paying us 40,000, we're giving them 30,000. So they're paying us more right now. So where do you want this $57,000 coming out of the visitor center?
Come back to me on that.
Okay.
I haven't actually read the background yet.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So come back to you
Today.
today.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I was just, honestly, I made the motion based on the recommendation from the service level reductions.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to be ready to pull that off.
Sure, yeah.
Consent if necessary.
Okay,
Thanks.
I'll be ready. Sorry,
How about
guys.
now? How about now? You ready now?
Councillor Hughes, go ahead. And don't ask me anything about
So-
the visitor center.
I'm going to ask Sean though. So, because you're here, with a very clean head. Like I can definitely tell that you cleaned today. Yours isn't as clean as his. So a couple quick questions about that. My understanding is that for the visitor center, it's actually, we have a contract for them to provide the services, because initially when they came in and they're paying rent, and I put forward the motion in 2014. So I remember that we actually did a contract. So I'm not sure if we actually can just end it unilaterally. Is that even an option?
So through you, Councillor Hughes, so the contract is currently expired. We're entering into a period right now where we would be looking to renegotiate that contract with the Chamber of Commerce. So if there was a window, the window is now, and that is why it is part of the proposal. So I hope that answers that question.
That does answer it. Thank you. The other question I had, and I don't know if you can do this as a BIR or if you can tell me now, either way, I totally understand, is just how much is it? I don't know if you can tell me, like if you're allowed to tell me publicly. So if you can't, you can tell me no. But like how much do we pay for the support for these various events? Because I see what the effects are. For example, the Park and Ride for the air show, if it were to occur, would make a significant difference for people trying to get to and from and that sort of thing, or how much we're actually providing for the Snowflake Festival or for the Lifestyle Trade Show. Because I can see people also, let's say that, I don't know, but let's say it's like $3,000 to do the Snowflake Festival and it's the horse and carriage, which is very popular. People may not necessarily appreciate that we cut it by $3,000 and that they no longer get to enjoy that. So can you provide breakdowns later, or do you have that number, or what would you feel more comfortable providing?
I think there is a bit of a breakdown in the business case that we submitted. If not, we certainly could provide that. We have that info. Just anecdotally, the cost allocated to some of these events. So in relation to the Snowflake Festival, our contribution to that is entirely sponsorship. And that really is the only revenue that the Chamber of Commerce collects for that event is through sponsorship. So something in that particular case, our withdrawal of our sponsorship dollars to that event would probably impact that event significantly. Whereas if you were to look at the expo, our sponsorship to that event is a portion of other revenue sources for that event. So our withdrawal from that event may not have the same significance or the same impact as it would for the Snowflake Festival. So we certainly can provide a breakdown of, you know, what we put towards those if they're not already in the service level business case. I can take that away as a BIR, and we can certainly provide that information.
Yeah, and if I missed it in the business case, just if you can just highlight it for me so that I can follow along, that'd be awesome. But that would be a helpful, just so that when it does come up for the motion, Mayor Herron, if we do want to take some things and put them back in, we know exactly how much, and we can have that proper debate. So I think the BRIR was just necessary for next Tuesday, but not for tomorrow, shall we say, just so that you have a timeline of how fast you have to address that. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions for Rec? Is Paul on the line? There he is. Quick question for you, Paul. I have a motion on the Mayor's Celebration of the Arts. Where is that one? PM 11. In the background, do you need me to state which of those options you would think? Because there's two that result in a $24,000 decrease this year, and then one that would be another $24,000 decrease, but then an increase of 7 to just give out awards. So do you need me to state that in the motion when I make it, which option I want?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I will do that when I read it further and decide. Okay. So Cheryl, I'll probably just slightly modify the motion when I make it. Okay. Any more for culture? Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Sorry, when you said culture, actually, I have Dev, but go ahead if you want to pass me
No,
by.
is anyone else for culture? Okay, you got off easy, Paul. Dev's back, thanks.
Just a question back to Sean in relation to some of those. When you're, if you are doing the BIR in relation to the breakdown, would that also include some of the costs that our Public Works does as well in relation to closing off streets and things like that in some of these events, or is that possible to capture? For example, I mean, obviously when we have the Snowflake Festival, we have Public Works that has to be available. We have staff that has to be available in City Hall, and likewise, would that be included in any of our costs? You're on mute. Sorry, you're on mute. It was a good answer though.
Yes and no. So like with the farmers market, for example, we have a contract with the Chamber of Commerce wherein they reimburse us for those costs. So we're actually not committed from our own resources for that. When it comes to other events like Snowflake Festival, things of that nature, I believe the Chamber works directly with Public Works. So if we were to provide a response as to the cost of that, it wouldn't necessarily part of the cost related to economic development. It would be probably either in kind or fee for service between the Chamber and Public Works. So we would have to coordinate a response with Public Works to get you that information.
Only if it's possible. I'm just trying to think of, I mean, we're looking at the totality of it as well. I mean, yes, we provide specific sponsorship as you've already identified, but there are other costs to the city and impacts to the city. The other one I have in relation to one of the motions there is the reduce the residential attraction. Could you, in another, and either if you have the information right now or if you want to take it away, I'm fine with it. That 19,909, what does that include? I mean, the background is kind of just saying, well, it's an attraction to, other communities are doing it around, their communities around attracting new residents into our community. But I mean, that's kind of where it ends. Are there specific programs attached to that 19,000?
Yeah, so through you, Councillor, that one in particular is really just kind of a fundamental switch as to how we are engaging these groups. So this whole concept of residential attraction, I think historically has been viewed as, attracting new residents into our community, when really the service we're providing is working with the development community to provide various housing options so that we can attract new residents. So in the past, we've used that money largely for marketing campaigns and things to that effect. What we're transitioning to, and we're transitioning towards this well before the budget submission, was really a different way of engaging these groups. So working with UDI, working with the Home Builders Association, engaging the various brokerages throughout the capital region. And it really is more kind of a grassroots engagement campaign that does not require the marketing dollars that it once did. So that's essentially the reduction. There won't be any service level reduction. It's essentially directly tied to marketing dollars that we will no longer be utilizing for that particular service level.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Sean, along those lines, I don't know if you were in the recovery task force, but one day, one of the members pointed out, and he or she is a developer, pointed out that in other communities, all the developers actually contribute to a pot of money, and that helps market and do residential attraction. Is that kind of where we're headed?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting idea. I was at that meeting and I heard that. It is not something we've done. I think there's another business case in for general marketing of the community, whether it's through government relations or economic development. I think that is a portion of that, but certainly there is ongoing work right now around identifying our value proposition and identifying, a methodology around, promoting the community of St. Albert in kind of all aspects. So that work is, I guess, underway, but whether or not we're working towards that, I suppose is we're not quite there yet, but we're working in that direction, I would say.
I found it interesting that if it happens in other communities, then we should try to pursue that as actually revenue source. Natalie, any questions for rec, culture? You have no culture questions?
I know where those motions are going. I'll pull them off consent, but I have no question.
All right. All right. Okay. I'm going to open it up to anything now. So Diane or culture, if you need to run off and do something in anticipation of 4:30 today, go ahead. And now we can go to anything else. Councillor Hughes, go ahead.
So this is about the IDP, and I'm just going to, and maybe it says it in the background, and I'm just going to read it really quickly in case it wasn't, but I'm just going to pretend that it wasn't in the background. I thought that we were trying to, maybe it's Satima or Heron, we want to try to work on that IDP sooner than later. So the intention to postpone it, maybe this is time of debate. I'm trying to grapple that because
I made the decision to postpone it when I found out that Sturgeon County is not funding it in 2020. So, and I was already almost thinking of postponing it anyway, because it might be a good project for the next council, both of them, because it's going to be multi-year, I would assume, an IDP, very much like the MDP. Adrian, it's multi-year.
Yeah, so it'll, with the postpone motion, it would start basically in 21, and it would likely creep into early 22, I would think. So a little over a year.
Yeah. So I thought that so if Sturgeon County is not funding it, then why would we? And then wait for the next council and the other, seriously, honestly, I was looking for opportunities to lower the tax rate. And when you take that money, I asked the question, why is it not being funded out of capital? But they're actually funding it out of new assessment dollars. So I'm adding it to the growth reserve, which will then transfer to directly lower the taxes.
I totally get that, and that's not a problem. I'm not going to tell you to
you
raise
like
the
lowering
taxes.
So that was kind of my thought process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess you're more in the know than me, but because I'm thinking they don't have it in their budget, but has there been any discussion about putting it into their budget? I don't want them to put it in their budget and us take it out, I guess is the question. So
I'm unaware.
and are you aware? Oh, hello,
Adrian.
So I have talked with Sturgeon administration about this, and they basically just felt like it wasn't likely or possible to fit within the 21 budget. So they were actually looking forward to doing some scoping work in 21 with us, but then actually funding for 22.
Okay, so that's actually pretty easy then. Thank you for that.
Is it a, would it qualify for an ACP grant?
That's something that we might have to look into a little bit more. I know that that was a discussion that we were having internally.
I saw Carrie kind of give a little nod, so, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. We did add that to the PM backgrounder, is that the ACP grant may be an option
Awesome.
for consideration.
All right, is that all you had for now, Councillor Hughes? Okay, Councillor Mackay.
Can we ask transportation questions?
You can ask whatever you want now, I think. Yeah.
All right, this is for Mr. Schick if he's on the call. Or Donnie. Got it.
Dean is on the call as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So in relation to the changeover where on the project charter on the neighborhood traffic calming strategies and the strategy to amalgamate safe journeys to school and into kind of the neighborhood calming. Can you, so in looking at the breakdown in 2021, you've identified, $70,000 in detailed planning and design. And then the actual structure and building construction is $450,000 for this year. Were there any projects that were already prioritized, either coming out of Safe Journeys or currently in the neighborhood traffic calming identified through active transportation or otherwise that are ongoing? I'm just kind of wondering why are we now doing $70,000 more or less in detailed, or is there some work that cannot carry over or isn't carrying over?
I would just wait for Dean to respond, but general answer is yes, there was some reduction in scope adjustment in both project charters. So I see Dean on the line, but looks like he's not connecting yet.
Well, we really don't want to see what's growing on his lip anyway, so. It's Movember.
I guess what I'm looking, I appreciate the fact that we're doing a little bit more in-house and however we're reducing that. But I'm just wondering from the work that's carrying over from either of the two projects with the Safe Journeys. We say we identify like 5 sites a year, or like, is it possible to have a reduction in that, or is there some like can we not just cut back to 3 sites just based on our existing priorities?
Yeah, I'm trying to connect Dean, but I think there was 7 originally, Councillor Mackay, and you did reduce it to 5 as per the postponed motion. Can we look at reducing it to 3? Obviously, yes, but then we have to go back to communicate to the communities that we have already engaged with in terms of the prioritization changes would be my general answer. But if you want more details, I can get that from Dean.
All right, yeah, you can take it away. If he's trying to grow his mustache and he's embarrassed to come on TV, that's fine. I appreciate it. But I'm just trying to just see if there's any way we can look at it, because I did put in the postponed motion to reduce it by 100,000, but I wanted, what's the implications of that? And I haven't seen the response back on the PM, so I just thought I would ask it in relation to this.
Okay, yeah, I can pull that PM up here quickly. Just give me a second here.
Yeah, there's just the PM right now, Donnie. There's no, I haven't, there's nothing, there's no background or in relation to that yet.
Okay, yeah, I can get back to Dean and get more information out for you.
Yeah, I don't want to create an burden of it, but I'm just looking at the breakdowns and then the amalgamation of the two, and I'm wondering whether or not we can actually roll it back 1 site or 2 sites, so that instead of $450,000 in actual site construction, we can maybe cut it back a little less. Because I mean, as we go out, it's like, our numbers kind of, and I realize as we go out, we're really just projecting, but I mean, our costs are, they're all over the map in relation to between 320 and 370 for actual structure. And then I'm just wondering if there can be some modification in the sites or what the impacts would be specifically in relation to that.
Okay.
That's good. You can get back to it. Okay. I see there's no response to the PM on the backgrounder yet. So when that comes, that's all I'll need. Thank you. As long as I can get it before December 1st, I guess.
Councillor Hanson, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is around the postponement of the franchise fees. Can you tell me what in particular that revenue is used for? Or is it targeted, or does it go to our general revenues?
I could maybe jump in and ask that. So as part of when we put the franchise fee in, council also made a motion to update the budget guiding principles document that makes it very clear that the all franchise revenue is put directly to offset taxes. So it isn't targeted to anything specific, but it goes to offset the general taxes.
Thank you for that. That's all I have.
All right. Any more questions for anyone? I think we might have some more that might require an in-camera conversation. Is that correct? Do you have Public Works ready to go, Kevin? Okay, Carrie's nodding. Okay. And is this also a good chance? Do we have Ryan available if we want to talk about HR related stuff? Again, I've seen a nod from Carrie, so I'll go with that. Yeah. Ken has another question before we go there.
I apologize. Can I ask a question on the vacuum truck? Is somebody from Public Works just specifically in relation to that? Thanks, Kate. I appreciate you jumping in. Just in the backgrounder and then in the actual looking at the project charter again, and I think Councillor Hughes asked this question, but the operational impacts in 2022 and then on 2023 are so it's I mean there's a total number of 268,430 for 2022 and 2023, and then that just is. That, I mean, is that accurate? Is that what the operating costs will be ongoing? I mean, the truck right now, if we purchase a truck and then I realize it's half a year, but then the ongoing operating costs are for salary are 162, and that's for like two employees?
That's correct.
I'm just looking at the clarity now, and this is what I missed in the first bit was this is a specific truck, a little bit different than the other regular hydrovac trucks.
So it's a hydrovac truck. It's I'll say a normal hydrovac truck. It's not anything particularly special. We currently have a combo unit. This one's just focused on hydrovac, which is where you do your catch basin cleaning, how you do your utility locates, how we do most of our work in the boulevard because there's so many shallows there right now. It's hard to use the dig and kind of ensure you don't hit things. So most work now as it relates to construction uses a hydrovac very in close connection with all the workers.
Yeah, when I read the first paragraph of the justification, I saw the intention is to purchase an optimized truck that is shorter than conventional trucks. So I just took that to mean shorter than a conventional hydrovac truck, but you're just saying regular construction truck.
Yeah, so it's what you'd see as a normal hydrovac on the road. It's not triple axle. By doing that, you might have to make more loads to dump the hydrovac waste, but you generally don't have to worry about being overweight, etc., because you are looking at a smaller weight capacity.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Just curious, hydrovac waste. Do we have a site that we have to? That we have in the city, or do we have to take it quite a ways to dump?
No, we actually dry our hydrovac ourselves. At the back end of the compost depot, we have a series of bins that we do hydrovac drying in. So we remove the moisture so that when we do remove it, whether we take it to, we have 2 locations that we sometimes manage our hydrovac at. We are transporting dry waste, which is substantially cheaper to dispose of.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'm just as a byway. I mean, there's, I think we were looking at 2 years ago, we were actually looking at some sort of a commercialization of a ability to have a hydrovac dump for, that we could actually put out to the market. And is that kind of, sorry for the vernacular, dried up for lack of a better term? Or we're not continuing with that?
Right now it's focused on our operation, so it does keep us busy right now with our current staff using for the summer spring months for our staff only and for our waste only. If we did want to make it bigger to open up for third-party dumpers, we would just need to put some dollars into that particular facility, and right now I haven't put that business case together.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, this was something that Kevin had brought forward before he left a couple of years ago, I believe. So thanks, I appreciate it.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere, Kate. Let's have it. I just want to continue on the same topic, just because I know I have that motion and I just want to make sure I understand things clearly. So when I see the chart and it shows the capital projects, utilities, parks, and sign shop, is that specific? When I read it, you're saying this is money we put that's related to it, but it's not hydrovac, a vacuum truck savings, like it, because it just says that you didn't have the exact invoices because it's kind of part of a larger amount. So is the 298,000 in 2018 for capital projects specifically type of hydrovac truck related expenses, or is it part of a larger?
So it within a number of the capital charters, or within a number of the capital projects, there were some cases where they had specific line items of hydrovac costing for specific projects. Some projects didn't have it broken out as a specific line item. So it's as accurate as we could get it. There may be more dollars attributed to it. We just couldn't get any clearer numbers without having them traditionally split out as a separate line item.
So the numbers that we do have are numbers that we're confident about that are related to hydrovac, but it could actually be higher than that. Is that
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. And the total, okay, so that the actual savings each year, for example, for 2020 would be $556,000. So what we're expecting to save total all in for, if we were to, I realize that we're not getting it in 2020, I know it's not getting it in 2021, but if we actually had it in 2020, the payout back would be $556,000 from that year. Is that correct?
So possibly. So there are some items as it relates to capital works that you would not want us to contract internally. So when a contractor, so let's take the barrier wall, for example, they were had a hydrovac basically on site majority of the time, looking for utility locates or conflicts with utilities as they were drilling piles. That's a liability we likely wouldn't want to hold ourselves and would like the contractor to do that themselves. So the majority of projects, they have to go through and clean all the catch basins before they go in. That's something that we would definitely do ourselves, and there's efficiencies in doing it that way. There's other pieces when we are doing design work that we can go in and help locate depths of conflicts, etc. at the design stage. That's something we can definitely help with. Once it gets to harsh construction, there are pieces that we probably wouldn't want the liability off the get-go. From the city side, we would like the contractor to probably hold the majority of the responsibility in some of those cases.
Yeah, and I totally makes sense. So let's say out of the 556,000 for 2020, what would we be like relatively confident that we would be able to realize the savings out of that? Like, do we think like 400,000?
I'd probably go 3/4 of it in any one year.
Okay. Okay. And okay, I think that's all I need to know, just so I had a clarity of that, because I wasn't sure if it was part of a larger capital project, or like if, for example, capital projects was the vacuum plus a bunch of other things we couldn't separate out, but this is the vacuum. So I got it. Thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is Katrina here? I think we need to talk about the FCSS motion? There she is.
Yep.
First off, sorry for confusions. I think everybody was confusing. When I read the proposed service level adjustments, it didn't really specify that it would, not that I remember, specify whether it would be city-run FCSS programs or external agencies. You interpreted the motion to be just cut the city-run programs. Is that correct?
Just the one program, the individual and family support. So there's 3 programs, 2 city and 1 external. So we lined it up with the SLA business case, which was just directed for the one program.
Okay. So Carrie sent us this memo. It was awesome. Couple questions on the memo. So it says there's actually 4 kind of delivery areas. Counseling and support services, which is where the motion, where your interpretation of the motion is, which would save $300,000. And it would just be internal. It would be short-term counseling, this family school liaison outreach, and the resource coordinator, correct?
Correct.
Then the other one is the public education and community building. You had targeted a 16% reduction through PBB, and you've already taken that out of the budget, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then there was the education, training, and information resources. It says in the memo that you targeted 18% reduction, but it doesn't actually say if that was achieved or not.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could explain. So the 3 categories that you're looking at were the PBB categories. So what I did in the table below is I lined those up more with our 3 core services. So under community strategies and community development, 2 of the PBB program areas fall under that. And I'm sorry, I know it's confusing. So public education and community building and education, training, information resources actually both fall under community strategies and community development.
Okay.
So
you-
what we,
So the 170 is a reduction in both those.
correct.
Okay. You know why? It's because it's on 2 separate pages. That's why I was confused, honestly. Okay, so no reduction in the outside external agencies is proposed.
Correct.
Right, because of course the Gazette printed it differently, and not their fault at all, but I just want to get clarity. So the province gives us about 1.4 million.
Mhm.
We are required to put in 356,000, and we do.
Yep.
And then we put in another 700. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I
Yes.
did the math. So we're actually putting in $1,056,000 towards FCSS.
That 700, oh, yes, when you include our mandatory contribution as well as our over contribution, that would be correct.
Okay, so we're already, and then I was actually really quickly trying to find it, but I couldn't. What do we do for outside agencies? I mean, we just had this conversation, but what is our outside agencies?
Our outside agencies
Total
grant or the
cost.
FCSS program grant? The FCSS program grant?
No, outside agencies, the separate grant that we do that is not FCSS related. That we
Okay.
just approved it all.
That's $598,000.
598.
I think it's plus or minus 5, but it's just shy of 6.
So I just want to be clear, and I think the public should be clear that we're putting in almost $1.6 million to social programming. And I just wanted to make sure I had those numbers right for when I start debating this. So council, you could interpret the background or any way. I had interpreted that it would just be a $300,000 reduction across all program areas, which would affect some of the externally funded ones. And then it would be a tough year, and we could maybe support them through outside agencies, a top up there, or as the Recovery Task Force is talking about, beefing up our supports that are non-monetary, that would help them. Doesn't have to be today. I wouldn't mind to hear some conversation around what you think we should do. Should it just be our own internal? Is that why you pushed your button? Go ahead, Jackie.
I guess the question I would have, Katrina, is I'm going to say, just given my work in the last few years, that it's pretty normal for most municipalities to top up the FCSS granting or for these programs in order to make them go. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, most do. So just to give you some numbers, the requirements, so FCSS program funding throughout the province for the 205 programs is 100 million, and municipalities are required to match that with 25 million for the minimum 20%. In 2019, what municipalities contributed was 49 million. So over contributed by about 24 million.
And I guess one of the reasons why I'm assuming that the mayor might be bringing this forward is because it's another downloading of trying to get our services out there for our most vulnerable. But the impact would be heavy, I'm guessing, if this motion goes through.
Mm-hmm.
And where would we be? I didn't read your motion like that. I read your motion as let's stop funding where the province should be funding. That was kind of the way I read your motion, because we need to let them look after what they say they're going to look after.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, Katrina, without having a crystal ball in front of you, do you know where the heaviest impact of that would be if this motion goes ahead?
Thank you. Through Madam Mayor to Councillor Hanson, I think there's a couple of ways to do the math. So if we're looking at 300,000, so as we know, 700,000 is the over contribution, but if we looked at reducing the over contribution by 300,000, and we looked at prorating it across the 3 core areas, then that would mean a reduction of about 72,000 in the FCSS program grants area for 2021. Now, the recommendation that's going to be coming for you does not recommend that the full amount be given out. So that might not be as hard a hit in that area. And it would mean about 111,000 in the counseling supports area and 117,000 in the community development strategies area. So there would be an impact. So if we looked at that kind of prorated distribution for the counseling area, it would mean a reduction in ability to serve approximately 100 individuals or families in a year. And for the strategies area, it would mean a reduction in ability to respond to some of the emerging social issues.
Okay, that's a good capture. So thank you for that.
Can you actually update the backgrounder to reflect that, or send us an email on that, Katrina? Because I was trying to scribble it down as fast as I could, but I might not have got it exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we had read my motion as I intended, we would have actually been cutting $700,000 out of the budget, not 300.
Correct.
Wow, that would have lowered our taxes.
So if Katrina, you're going to provide us with both scenarios in your email?
I can.
Right.
700, just to be clear, a reduction of 300,000 prorated across all 3 service areas and 700,000 prorated across.
700. I'm not going to go that crazy extreme. Just 300. You've already given us what it would be 300 within the internal. Let us see what it would look like prorated. Is that what you mean?
The 300?
The 300, yeah. Do
Okay.
you want the 700? Yeah, I honestly, I don't think our not-for-profits could handle that right now. So.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to give us very quickly, Katrina, provincial funding of FCSS over the last 10 years. I feel like there's only ever been one increase since I've ever been elected in that budget.
Probably not going back all the way over 10 years, but I can tell you that in 2016, the provincial FCSS budget was increased from 75 million to 100 million. Okay. So that was the last increase. Before that, I think it was pre-2011. It might have been 2009.
Okay.
But I'm confident about the 2016.
Yeah, I remember that really well. It's funny because that would require us to top up more, but municipalities across Alberta were very happy and celebrated that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was that, Ken? Go ahead. Speak.
Well, I remember when we ended up with that one top up, I was on CSA be at the time. And we ended up using some of that money for the community program for helping families in need. We used about, I can't remember what it was, but we didn't allocate it all back into counseling services and others, or even to the agencies. We actually turned some of that money back into actually supporting community. And I'm trying to remember what the name of the program is, but I can't. But I'm just saying that.
Okay. This is a hard one, guys. All right. Any more questions on the FCSS motion? Go ahead. I'm going to go to Natalie, then Sheena. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. So you just kind of asked for some comments. So I kind of understood your intent, and I guess I wouldn't be opposed to shifting some of that over contribution into outside agencies or something else. So it's very clearly for the city. And so we don't have the same restrictions that we have around FCSS. So I just throw that out there. And also, I mean, we heard from, I don't remember which group it was, but one of the budget feedback groups specifically commented that, you know, these grants are really important, but at the end of the day, there has to be some level of accountability. And that means that not everyone who qualifies is necessarily should make the cut. So just as a comment, I would definitely consider that when we consider your motion next week.
Thanks. And I'm trying to get into debate now, guys. I'm just trying to figure out how I should maybe reword it. And no matter what, this will not go on consent because I don't even know what the wording is going to be. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So just to correct Mayor Heron, it's 594,000 for outside agencies, not 598.
594?
594.
Thank you.
The other thing was, so the FCSS that was approved this year, I'm going to look to you, Katrina. So we recommended to approve 532,000, and I think the total budget was 604, correct? So if it was reduced this next year, CSAC would not have to go back and rejig the system because we had a little bit left over this year. That being said, I just want to give you guys a heads up. So the organizations that we recommended were the Big Brothers Big Sisters for the 64,000. There was SAFE, which was for youth counseling, specifically with abuse. The Seniors Association was for supports. There was the Newcomer Connection Program, Family Life Education from Family Resource Center, and the Income Tax Program and Community Liaison from the Food Bank. The other one that came forward was for Out Loud. So I'm just, because I know you're thinking, okay, we have the extra money, just so you know, but just before we get too excited, Out Loud was asking for more money, and the intention from CSAC was that they were going from a strictly volunteer basis to going to more of a paid situation because their original founders were taking a step back, their children had gotten older. So their intention was to probably come back next year and ask for 150,000. And this year with the count that they approved 76,000. So I'm just like, if you said you wanted to reduce it for this year, we know what this is, but it would not be unheard of to expect them to come back in a year and be doubling their request. So they were asking for just more paid members, and the intention was to say, what, get all of your bylaws together, get everything else together, and then come back before, so you don't grow too quickly and fall on your face in trying. Okay, so just so that you understand that, while the recommendation this year was definitely going to be below what we could spend, the expectation was that everybody who's currently asking for money will come back to the table with the same type of programs in the future, and there will be an additional ask for another at least $76,000 in 2022.
So is that your CSAC agenda package?
This is, I got the total amount is from the community living, because we had that.
Okay, I
right?
thought it was, yeah.
And I'm just telling you what came up from the discussion and the, you know, what you should expect going forward, that, you know, from the meeting when I was at the committee. So, yeah, so I'm just, so while we might think that we were well below, it wouldn't be unheard of to think it's coming in. And the majority of that money, if we do take it, it would be for Out Loud. So, okay, just so you had some background on that.
All right. Any more questions on anything? Okay, I'm seeing none. It is 3:09. We have about 40 minutes before we have to do the Emergency Advisory Committee. So let's jump into our in-camera discussion if we can. And are you giving me the breakout rooms? I can do it, yep. Okay. All right. So I need a motion from a member of council. Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Yes, yeah.
Council Chambers is currently muted. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be.
Hi, Natalie. I'm just saying some technical jargon to Kathy. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it here too. Committee of the Whole move in Canada to discuss matter pursuant to subsections 24(1), yep, A and G of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
All right, call for the vote. Those of us in chambers can use Granicus, and then Natalie, you can use the yes, no button. Voting's done. All right, and that is passed unanimously. Okay, give us 5 minutes, Natalie, as we figure out how to do the breakout rooms. Okay.
Okay, the breakout rooms are created. You'll be receiving an invite shortly.
There, did that work? a motion to reconvene in public, it was unanimous. Councillor Mackay did the confidential motion and it was unanimous. So, council, last ditch attempt to make any BIRs or PMs. Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
So I just have two. So the BIR is to provide a breakdown of the proposed 57,000 reduction to the tourism budget, how it would be affected, like the cost for the Snowflake Festival, air show, parking, etc.
You're going to email these in?
I am.
Okay.
I'm just trying to type in that last one and then I'll hit the forward button. And the other one is that if PM 027 fails, and only if it fails,
Which one's that?
which is the pickleball courts,
Okay.
that the Alpine Pickleball Courts Sound Studies funded for $10,000.
Okay.
So, so I'll hit the send button for both those puppies. That's it.
All right, anyone else? All right, I will recess this meeting now. Councillor Jolly, are you good?
Yeah, I didn't vote on any of those motions, but I don't know if that matters.
How did you vote? How would you vote? It does matter. You can't abstain.
Well, like I would have supported both of them, but
I apologize.
okay.
Yeah, you can't abstain. That would be a problem. Did you actually hear in Whitecourt somebody did on the mask bylaw and they're gonna maybe kick them off council? That's how bad you have to vote.
Yeah, I will. Like I'll vote for both of those, but I just didn't. I wanted to make clear that I would have, I guess.
That you in favor. Okay. All right, we will see you guys all on December 1st to actually enter into debate. As per usual, we'll put everything on consent, but I'll pull off right now the FCSS motion and then we can get there that day. All right?
Mayor Herron, I had a suggestion for your FCSS motion. If you
Okay, can we do it later? Because I got to get to EAC.
just break it up to all three. So say 72 for the FCSS, whatever for the counseling, whatever for it is, and that way we can split it up when we do it. That's all.
We could do it that way. Yeah, okay. Thanks. All right, see you guys on the 1st.